Hello there, Drew Hanish of Whiskey Lore, and time for another tasting video. And today we are going to Scotland and going to try what I like to call a really good starter whiskey. It's one of the first single malts that I had jumped into. I thought 15-year-old whiskey was a pretty good price. What the heck? Let me jump into it and see what it's all about. Because when you first start drinking scotch, there's this thing in your head that says, oh, well, if it's older, it must be better. Something that will dispel through all of these tasting videos. But Dalwhinnie 15 is a really good whiskey. Now, this is made by Diageo. Diageo is a English company that owns a bunch of distilleries in Scotland. And if you go to Dalwhinnie, if you get a chance to go to Scotland, they had these passes. I don't know if they're still doing this after COVID or not, but they had these passes that you could sign up for it. You get the pass, and then you could actually get stamps and go to all of the other Diageo distilleries for free, which was great. It was the Classic Malt, Friends of Classic Malt, I think is what it was called, which was a really great idea. And hopefully that's still around, but I'm not sure if it is. Definitely something to check into. Although there's a problem with that in that a lot of these tours require reservations, and so there's not really a number in your book or anything when you're online and signing up. It's going to make you pay. So it maybe if you travel during a season when there's not a lot of tourists going to the distilleries, that'll help you out a little bit. A little about Dalwhinnie. This is actually a distillery that started up right at the end of the Patterson crash in 1898. And it was actually purchased by an American company, and it was owned by an American company from 1905 all the way through to 1920 when Prohibition started, and then they went out of business, and it went back into Scottish hands. And actually, I believe the Greenlees are the ones that bought it. The Greenlees, if you listen to the Whiskey Lore podcast episodes around Campbeltown, which are available to our Whiskey Lore Society members, they will tell you all about the Greenlees and all the other families that were in Campbeltown, which was the Scotch whiskey, or the whiskey capital of the world, was actually what it was referred to. I'm finding now there are more places that had lots of distilleries in them. But anyway, that is interesting that we think about companies like Brown-Forman's now come in and bought some distilleries in Scotland. There's outside investment into Scotch distilleries. And maybe you didn't think that was going on way back at the beginning of the 20th century, but Dalwhinnie is a good example of that. Now, one of their claims to fame, if you look at their box, is it says that it's from the highest distillery in Scotland. Not sure if you can read that or not. From the highest distillery in Scotland. And the problem with that is that there's actually a distillery that is higher than them by 9 feet. It's Bravall. Bravall is a distillery that is way off in the hills and hard to get to. And I've not been to that distillery, and I don't think they have a visitor center. So I guess we could say that Dalwhinnie is the highest distillery in Scotland that has a visitor center, so that you can actually go and check it out. I don't know that 9 feet is going to make a lot of difference in terms of the whiskey and how it's produced. I think that has a lot more to do with the grains they're using, the yeast they're using, the skill of the distillers, the aging warehouses, and how they're managing all of that. So let's jump into this one for a nosing. Now, this is a whiskey that I believe, and large companies will tend to do this, I think it does actually have coloring in it. It's probably chill filtered. There's no messaging on the bottle about either one. And this is a whiskey that, like I say, it's a great starter whiskey. I get some apple pie elements in here. There is a really strong upfront apple, little bit of pear in there as well. Very sweet nose. Got some baking spice in it, maybe a little bit of cinnamon in there. There's some vanilla, very bright fruit on this one. And that's why I say I don't think it would be very offensive to people. On the palate, nice medium mouthfeel to it. Honey, grain comes through, that malt comes through. The apple is still there. Kind of rolls off. Maybe I get a little citrus peel in there. There is some heat. Maybe we say that's more of a red hot cinnamon kind of a heat that comes in. There's a slight smoke, but it's very slight. In fact, because I'm used to drinking smoky whiskeys, I barely notice it. If you're coming to this and you've never had a smoky whiskey before, you might pick up a little bit of it. But it's not a medicinal, iodine-y kind of smoke that you get from some of the Isla whiskeys. So I like it. It has, it's what I would call a sweeter yet somewhat complex whiskey. There's a lot going on. It's very balanced. The pepper on the end is kind of a surprise, actually, because it is so sweet and floral, and then you've got those apple pie elements up front, and then all of a sudden it goes into this real peppery kind of a finish. And that is a really long finish. I'm still experiencing it. In fact, I'm getting maybe a little cocoa in there on top of what I was getting elsewise. So you can see I've cleaned this bottle out. I actually bought this for my trip across when I drove from the East Coast to the West Coast, and just carried this bottle with me and probably had about that much of it before I got back. But yeah, a really nice, competent whiskey, and one you should try out. I am Drew Hanish. Thank you so much for joining in. By the way, on my rating scale, I'm right down the middle. I'm giving this one a good. This is not good. This is not blowing me out of the water, but it's not disappointing in any way, shape, or form either. So I say it's good. Check it out. Cheers and Slanjava.